computer, because then I can Facebook it.
Okay.
I'm going to try this one more time. This is maddening.
Mm-hmm.
You should see this public. Okay, cool. Share known timeline. Share on my group. I don't think this is going to work, but I'll have to find out from Facebook. Nope, I'm not getting anything here. Okay, so we're just gonna do it like we normally do.
Okay.
All right, everyone. We are here with Sasha Borenstein. Hi, Sasha. Thanks for volunteering.
You're welcome. Good afternoon.
So every week we have burning questions of the week, and the burning questions of the week are questions typically around sounds and language structure and things like that, of that nature, that that you all are interested in learning about. So Sasha volunteered. She is our guest speaker tonight because she is not one of our moderators that typically do this. And I want to just introduce her. She has worked in the fields of special education and literacy for 50 years as a classroom teacher. 50 years. That's a long time. A remediation specialist, a diagnostician, a college instructor, and educational consultant. She also founded and directed a clinic in Los Angeles, the Kelter Center, for 36 years, another long time. Sasha's training began at Columbia Teachers College, but she has continued learning about learning and literacy throughout her career. Patricia Lindemood, Dr. Mel Levine, Maureen Aumann, Step Up to Writing, Working with the Language Program, and Bloom's Revised Taxonomy, to name a few. Sasha recently has brought out the second edition of her book, and I have it. How to Teach Reading and Spelling, Bringing the Science of Reading into the Classroom, and she has begun again to train and mentor teachers in this area. The training focuses on what to teach, the scope and sequence of science of reading literacy, how to teach this body of knowledge, which is structured literacy, and how to develop the problem-solving skills of the participating teachers and their students so they can become independent, thoughtful, self-correcting linguists. Doesn't that sound like a great course? It is.
Thank you.
After our burning questions this week, Sasha is going to tell us a little bit more about that course that we are offering on the Science of Reading, What I Should Have Learned in College Facebook group. And take it away, Sasha.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Donna. And I must say that one of my favorite things to do is to be in the moment, problem solving, looking for answers. How do we do this? How can we be creative? To me, for a long time when I was younger, I thought, oh, I'm not a creative person. I don't draw. I don't create music. And then I said, no, my teaching is creative. By figuring out how to best serve the students that I work with, the teachers that I work with. That's where my creativity is. And it's also a joy to do it. So one of the things I'm going to do, I'm going to share my screen so everybody can see the PowerPoint that I created based on the questions that people sent to Donna this week. So I'm going to move this over so everybody can see this, and I'm going to make this smaller. And as we go through, obviously we should try and do questions at the end, or if you want to write questions in the chat, and Donna, you can kind of feed those to me, that would be great. Donna, you have my permission to stop and ask questions at any time so that this is more of an interesting interchange, not just me talking.
Okay.
Okie dokie. So let me see, I need to do one thing here so that I can move. So the first question that was posed this week was, is there a rule for spelling R-controlled vowels? And how does one know when to use IR versus ER? So a couple of things. R-controlled vowels are a single consonant, A, E, I, O, U, followed immediately by the letter R. And the letter R is a really strong linguistic marker. In other words, it changes the sound of that single vowel completely. And there's 5, obviously, A, E, I, O, U, but IR, ER, and UR all say the same sound. And you might say, well, why would that happen? And there's a couple of reasons. One of the reasons is that when English was first being written down, there was no governing body like they have in France that says, this is how you will spell things. It was just that people in different parts of England and different scribes were writing it down differently. The other thing that's pretty interesting is that in Middle English and Old English, these ER, IR, and UR sounded completely differently. So that can help. I am always talking with my students about these kinds of historical facts because it's really important for them to understand there's rhyme and reason and evolution of ideas that are really important. So that's a background on the R-controlled vowels. Now let's get to IR and ER. So the most common spelling of as a vowel is ER, bar none. But we're going to talk about IR and ER, and then I'm going to tell you about a really interesting study that I just discovered really recently. So ER can be used either as a phoneme or a morpheme. What do I mean by that? So a phoneme is a sound within a word that does not have meaning. So in the words like paper, under, another, or the word verb, ER is part of that word. It is acting as a two letters making one sound. And you can see that in this case, ER can come at the end or in the middle of the word, and actually it can come at the beginning of words. So where it is within words is not so important as, oh, this is a part of a word, not a morpheme. However, ER can also act as a morpheme, a meaning unit, a suffix that comes at the end of a word. And it has 2 meanings. One is if I put it onto an adjective like the word wide, and I add ER, dropping the E from the wide, it became an adjective, a comparative adjective. It means more, or plumper, more plump, sweeter, more sweet, faster, more swiftly. Another meaning of ER is that we can take a verb and we can add an ER, or it can be part of a word like the word mother, and that ER tells us this is a person who paints, a person who bakes, a person who is in a mill, a miller. So ER, those are the ways that I teach ER. Now let's look at IR. So IR also can work as a phoneme and also a prefix, a morpheme, a prefix. And position is important. And position is a principle of spelling. I ask myself, where is this sound in the word beginning, middle, or end? And how does that affect spelling? Or it can also affect meaning, and letters that surround each other affect each other. Those are position ideas. So IR is mostly in the middle of a word, like in the word bird, birth, first, girl, but it can be in the beginning, not often, but at the beginning, as in the word irk, and it can be at the end, like words like fur, sir, stir. So it's just a sound and the letters that map onto that sound, IR. But we need to be thoughtful when IR is used in the beginning of a word as a prefix. And we want to look for very specific patterns. When you have IRR as 3 letters in a sequence in a word, or if you had IR and a vowel, this is important because the IR shifts. It no longer sounds like an R controlled vowel in these words. Like if we say irrigate, that it's not irrigate, it's irrigate. It's not iridescent, it's iridescent. It's not irritate, it's irritate. It's not irreplaceable, it's irreplaceable. Well, why would we have it change like that? Listen to what it sounds like when we leave it as an R controlled vowel. Irrigate. It's almost as if all those sounds at the beginning morph into one sound and you can't hear the morphemes. So because of that, we want to have good sound, euphony, and we want to be able to hear the prefix IR so it shifts its sound. I was listening this morning to a wonderful presentation by the late William Van Cleve, and one of the things that he was talking about is that we have to look at how things fit into phonology, which is the letters and the sounds, how they fit into orthography, which is the spelling patterns, how they fit into morphology, which is the meaning units. And what he said is, we need to look at all of those. So here we are looking at all of those. We could look at irrigate from a phoneme and it would say irrigate. But if we look at it from a morpheme point of view, then we're changing the sound to make it the prefix heard. Pretty interesting things. So ER is the most frequent spelling of and IR is much less frequent. But now I think you have some ideas to kind of hang on to those spellings so you can talk about it with your students. Did we have any questions for that, Donna?
Nope.
Okie
No
dokie.
questions.
Then I'm going to go to the next question. And someone said, hi, can I get some help as to the word how the word presentation would be broken up into syllables, please? Is it presentation or is it presentation? And it's interesting because this follows along with the same ideas that we were just talking about, irrigation and irrigation and flexibility. One of the, when I talk about spelling patterns, I say there's some really strong principles in spelling. One of them is position. Where does this sound come in the word? The beginning, middle, or end of the word, and also what are the surrounding letters or sounds. And another principle is flexibility. It could be this, it could be that. What are my possible ways to spell this? What are the most probable ways of spelling this? Let me work flexibly with this. So one of the books that I have used for many years, and I love it, it's based on a study by Hannah Hodges and Rupert, which was done in the 1960s. And these researchers took a body of 17,000 words and they put it into an old-time computer and they asked the computer to sort. And what they found is that there was a high degree of regularity in our language and that we really could understand spelling with a great deal of certainty. And Margaret Bishop took that information and created a little book called The ABCs and All Their Tricks. And it's a really wonderful small resource that we can use as teachers. So when I looked up S and Z, because in the word present or presentation and presentation, we have an S sounding like its consonant pair. The consonants come in groups of two. We use the same part of our mouth. We use the same kind of air, stream or a puff of air. And one of the consonants is voiced and one is unvoiced. That's true for 14 consonants. Well, S and Z happen to be one of those consonant pairs. And if you say them, S, Z, you can see that your mouth doesn't really move. Your lips stay in the same position. The air is the same. S is unvoiced, like I always use S and Z as comparatives. S, it's unvoiced like F, and Z is voiced like D. So S and Z are a consonant pair. Now that's important because many words spell that Z sound with an S. In fact, at the top of the slide, you'll see that 5,219 words have the Z sound and 580 have the Z sound. So there's, and that's, I should say the Z sound is spelled more frequently with S than with Z. And sometimes it also has a job. So in the word baths, the S is saying is being plural. Charges is also being plural. And the S in both of those words can respectively say S and Z. Also in just regular old words like nose and music and visit and use and choose and risen, the S is sounding like a Z. So that's a common thing to happen. And we want our students to have the flexibility to say, is S sounding like S in this word, or is S sounding like Z when we're reading it? And then also to say when we're spelling it, what letter is spelling that word? Another part of the answer to the question, where do I break the syllables in the word presentation, and which of those syllables is accented, because presentation, te is accented, presentation, the first syllable is accented. When we have a word spelled exactly the same, but we shift the accent pattern, we change the meaning of the word. So survey is a noun. Survey, where the accent is at the end, is a verb. Affect is a noun. Affect, where the accent has shifted to the last syllable, becomes a verb. Same for the rest of these. And I put at the bottom of this, present is an adjective. Present is a verb. The other thing that we have to think about when we're looking at breaking up words and pronouncing them is that dialect, how different people in different English-speaking countries and parts of countries changes the way that we pronounce and break a syllable into a word. So I then looked up the word presentation or presentation in Merriam-Webster's dictionary, and it showed both syllable boundaries. And so the flexibility rule is really important here. And what I've done here, I hope I have modeled how I think about problems that come up in teaching all the time. Where do I break this word into syllables? Where do I put the accent? Well, I have to understand the spelling patterns, the syllable boundaries, the meaning of the different parts of a word, and then I have to look it up in the dictionary. So in thinking about syllable boundaries, one of the things that I can say is I'm going to look back here to the word no presentation. If I took this word and I put the vowels and consonants starting at the first vowel, then putting consonants between them, I have a vowel consonant vowel pattern. When I have a vowel consonant vowel pattern in a word, there are two places that I could break the word apart, just as we did below this. I can break it after the first vowel, and that would create an open syllable, or I could break it after the consonant, the syllable boundary, and that would create a closed syllable. And again, a closed syllable says the vowel, the single vowel, must sound like its short sound or its sound on the single vowel staircase. And if I break the syllable after the first vowel, that's an open syllable, and a single vowel in an open syllable says its letter name, its long sound. So those are some of the ideas that I would use to answer the question, how do I divide this word and how do I pronounce this word? We want to look at the orthographic rules, the spelling rules. We want to look at the syllable boundaries. We want to be flexible. And then we also want to look at accent and stress and whether a syllable has been muffled into a schwa so that the vowel doesn't say its sound that you expect it to say, but it rather says or I. So that's the second question. Did we have any response in the chat for that,
Nope.
Donna?
Nope.
Nope. Okie dokie. Okay. Tia said, I need advice about the spelling patterns, and it's not pattern, but patterns. A-W, A-U, A-U-G-H, A-L, O-U-G-H. What are the tips and tricks for teaching it? So, one of the things that's happening is that many people are using some of the good resources to make vowel walls, vowel valleys. And when 10,000 years ago, I studied with Pat and Charles Lindemood, they taught me the vowel circle. And it's absolutely an important way of understanding the articulation of the vowel sounds. And the vowel sounds are much more irregular than the consonants. And so what's happening today with some of these bulletin boards is that we're putting the vowel valley, the vowel circle up, and then we're putting all of the different possible spelling patterns under the most probable spelling pattern. So I really would caution teachers to not do that way. I would say do the bare bones of that word wall if that's something that you're incorporating into your teaching, and then slowly but surely, in a measured way over time, add the various spellings for that vowel sound. Always saying what are the possible spellings and what are the most probable spellings. So I'm going to go through with this with you and hopefully make some sense of that. So if I'm looking at the letter A as a vowel, the most common sound of that letter A is at the end of a syllable in an open syllable, and it says its letter name A, its long sound. Another thing that is very, very common for the letter A in an open syllable is that it collapses into a schwa. And when it collapses into a schwa, it says like about, around, long. Those are the two most common sounds for the single letter A. But A also can say it's short sound or it's sound, I say, on the single vowel staircase. And some examples of that would be the word bat, chat, staff. And in the study from Hannah et al., 4,192 words had that pattern in them. I think that's a pattern that I'd like to teach my students. So many words, almost 4,200 words have that pattern. Here is basic. There were 1,202 words. That's where the A is saying the open syllable. Again, a lot of words have that pattern. And here we have about, arise, affect, which is when the A has collapsed into a schwa, and that was 1,438. So if I look at these the numbers, what it says to me as a teacher is I want to teach the single vowel A as it comes in the middle of a word and says ah first. That is the most probable way that A will sound. I then would teach both the open syllable A and when it collapses into a schwa, because those are pretty equal. I mean, the schwa sound is 400 words approximately more, but I teach those too. So that's how I deal with the single letter A. Now, AW, AU, both say aw. They say the exact same sound. They are articulated exactly the same, but the spelling pattern tells us something about where these letters, these graphemes are used. And this is part of what I call the position principle. In the word August, the ah sound is at the beginning of the word. In the word staunch, the ah sound is in the middle of the word. And in the word claw, the ah sound is at the end. So when I want to spell aw in the beginning or middle of a word, I use AU. When I have the sound of aw at the end of a word or the end of a syllable, I want to use AW. So that's how I teach the AU-AW. Now, other things that were asked about was AL. So, AL, again, just really actually similar to IR and ER, can function just as a phoneme, a sound within a word, or it can function as a morpheme, a meaning part of a word. So AL at the beginning of words saying aw, as in almost, there were 40 words in that 7,000 word group. AL in a word just as a phoneme saying al, alphabet, album, altitude, calculate, was 75 words. So here we go with the probability and possibilities. AL can say aw or it can say al, but it is almost twice as likely for it to say ah instead of aw. AL can also be used as a common ending syllable. And look at how many numbers of words use AL as an ending syllable. 549. I think I'd be teaching this AL when I'm working with students at the multi-syllable level as my most probable position in a word as well as sound, because when AL is at the end of a word, it is in an unaccented syllable And the A isn't sounding like or a, it's sounding like It has been muffled into a schwa. So we have sometimes pedal, ped means foot, annual, every year, geographical. So AL can be used at the end of words to be an adjective or a noun. OUGH is, I believe, the last spelling that this person wanted to know about. And OUGH is the maverick, completely and totally and completely and totally, because OUGH can have so many different sounds. Though, through, thought, dough, drought, thorough, sloth, slough, and slough. I mean, come on. OUGH has too many sounds to have. I couldn't figure out a pattern for this. So my thing is I would take these words and I would teach them, I would map them as heart words, and I would talk about the sound of that OUGH in each and look for common patterns and have my kids do 1,000 games with them and read words, spell words, do fluency activities with words, because there's so much variety in it. Okay. Donna, do we have any questions at all?
I do.
Good.
I want to know the resource that did the old computer generated information. What's the name of that?
Okay, in the next slide, I have this. So,
perfect.
Son of a gun. And I will say that I'm going to give you 3 resources, and 2 of them you have in the back of my book. One, you have the Hannah Hodges et al. Study. And that was done in the 1960s, I think actually 1966. It's more than 1,000 pages of research. You also have the ABCs and all their tricks, which is on this slide. I'll kind of highlight the color maybe.
You know what? I have that book.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
Ask me if I've ever used it. No, but I have it.
So you know what? It would be really fun. We could do a burning question sessions with just that book.
Just the book.
Yeah, and then the third one, which I just literally this week came upon, and I'm really excited about it, and it's really readable and usable, is a 2004 article done by Edward Fry, of the Fry lists of common words. And what he so brilliantly did is he took that Hannah study and he simplified it.
Oh.
He used the information, but he simplified it. So I would say the 2 best resources are this short Fry article, and then more information is with ABCs and all their tricks. It's really quite good.
Is that similar to the Uncovering the Logic of English?
You know what? I think it's similar. It's similar, but much simpler. And I think one of the things that we really need to look at in every resource that we have, what are the possible ways to spell this? What are the probable ways to spell this? Which of these rules gives me the largest number of words to read and spell that follow a pattern? And I have a lot fewer orthographic patterns in my book than the Logic of English, because that's where I'm coming from.
Right.
Okay.
So
which doesn't mean I don't learn stuff from that book, because I do.
Of course.
Yeah.
When we're done, I'm going to show this book, because this book, this ABCs and all their tricks, has word examples. So let's say
It
you want to know,
does.
which is nice, which is
Yes,
so
I
nice.
use it. I use it all the time when I'm lesson planning.
Yep, that's exactly my point.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is a wonderful little book. And you know, she wrote it. There's a second edition, and I thought, oh my gosh, there's a second edition. I'm going to buy it. It's the same pretty much as the first edition. So either one of them, you're going to get a lot of information out of. Okay. So let's look at another question. Someone said, what about the sounds of EA? So we're kind of back at what are the possible spellings, what are the probable spellings? And again, what I did on this slide is I looked at the ABCs and all their tricks, and those are the numbers that are at the top. And then I also looked at Edward Fry's little article, and those are the numbers at the bottom. And both of them are highly consistent. You know, they're based on the same research. And it's not that, I don't think you have to look at absolute numbers, but what you do want to look at is relative ratios. What's the most probable way of spelling this? And that's going to tell me, oh, the most probable way that this letter sound pattern works, that's what I want to teach first. The least probable one, that's what I want to use heart words and mapping with. I want to use mapping with all of them, but heart words and mapping for the least probable. So on this slide, the sounds of E, what you see at the bottom here actually it's in the middle, it says, in the study, 3 words that EA says A, the sound of A: great, break, and steak. Less than 1%. Hello, that's not very probable. I am going to treat those words as heart words. However, EA saying E, like vowel plus E, was 325 words. 67% of the EA words say E. Well, I'm going to start there. After I have taught vowel plus E, I teach I call this 2 vowel friends. The reason I call EA, EY, Y, OA, OW, AI, AY vowel friends is this. There is a ditty that all of us learned when we were in school. When 2 vowels go walking, the first one does the talking. And my response to that is, what can that possibly mean? Well, what it means is EA are sitting right next to each other in sequence within a word. They're walking together. The first one does the talking, means that E is saying its letter name and the A is completely silent. And that is only true for those 3 patterns: EA, EY, Y, OA, OW, AI, AY. It is not every vowel team, not every vowel digraph or diphthong. It's only those 7. So I say, let's not teach our kids that little ditty, but let's teach them these vowel friends, these 2 that work together, and what are their sounds, and they consistently work the same way. So EA is one of the 2 vowel friends, and it says E 67% of the time. That's what I'm going to teach first. EA says as in head, red, heavy, bread, breath, death, 32% of the time. So that's about half as frequent. Now, this is really interesting. In many of the words in the category, they are related morphologically in meaning to words where you hear the EA saying E. Like heavy is related in meaning to the word heave. It's that same, how can I push something that really weighs a whole lot of stuff over. It's heavy. The word meant is a really interesting word because it's got a T on it and it's past tense and it's not spelled with ED. Nevertheless, it is related to the word mean. So I mean something. I meant to say something. Present and past tense. And then the word pleasure is related to the word please. I thought that was really interesting. So there's lots of ways that we can take these ideas and make them meaningful to our kids. And if I were working with a first or second grader, I would teach EA as saying E. And then I would secondarily, many lessons later, I would teach it as E. I would teach the words EA saying A as heart words. When I looked up the same ideas in Edward Fry's study, to say the sound in 3,395 words, it was spelled with an E. In 139 words, was spelled with EA. To get the sound of E, saying its long sound in that study, 2,014 words spelled it with an open syllable E, and 245 words spelled it with EA. So I absolutely would be talking about the single vowel E in an open and closed syllable for a long time before I introduce these two vowel friends. Okay. So that was that question. Again, I'm stopping in between to see if Donna, you have some ideas, or if
Nope, I'm good.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. We really had some interesting questions this week, didn't we?
We had a lot. Yes.
And it's also interesting to me that the underlying principles that we're talking about are really similar, which is what Hannah's research says, which the ABCs and all their tricks is saying, which is Fry is saying, and that also I am saying. And again, all of this science of reading information is not a program, but it's telling us as teachers, how can we think about the lessons that we're presenting? How can we make them logical and that we can think through them, not just memorize them, no matter what program we have. And to me, that's essential. That's essential. So here's our next question. We are having a bear of a time with the Vowel Teams. I thought it interesting they used the word bear because it's got EA in there, and we didn't even talk about that sound. What suggestions do people have for working with Vowel Teams in accordance with the science of reading? By the way, I've searched archives and I can't find a concrete idea. So when I heard this, question, my first thought was, oh, wait a minute, what are we talking about as Vowel Teams? And so I wanted to be a little bit more explicit about what Vowel Teams are. I use this term all the time. I talk about syllable types, that I have open syllables, closed syllables, and I also have Vowel Team syllables. So let's be clear about what Vowel Teams could be. It's usually 2 or more letters, and there's some real common patterns. So Vowel Teams can fall into 2 very large categories. One is called digraphs, which is 2 letters, 1 sound, or diphthongs, 2 letters, 1 sound, that are produced by a gliding motion in the mouth. let's try that. If you're watching, say ow, and you can feel that when I begin the sound of ow, my lips are open and quite relaxed, and they then seamlessly glide closed into a puckered position. Ow. When I say oi, I start closed and in a puckered position, and my lips glide into a smile. When I say you, it's the fastest moving one of them all. I start smiling, you, and I very quickly go to a round puckered position. So that's what a diphthong is. And truthfully, not all programs put the UE there, but UE has actually two sounds, U, and that's the gliding diphthong, and it's almost like it's got an EU at the beginning of it, or it says ooh, and there is no glide when it says ooh, as in you. No, not that's in. I'll have to think of a word. I can't think of one right now, but I will in a minute. I want to go back to digraphs. Digraphs are two letters. They can be two vowel letters, or they can be a vowel and a W, a vowel and an R, a vowel and a Y. So vowel plus E, A E, I E, U E, O E, E E are vowel plus E. They're two letters, one sound. R controlled vowels are also digraphs. A, R, O, R, I, R, U, R, E, R. O, O is a vowel digraph. Or oo. A, U, A, W is a vowel digraph. And the two vowel friends, A, I, A, Y, O, A, O, W, O, U, O, W. No, O, A, O, W. So those are digraphs. So my question is, oh, wait a minute, Vowel Teams, I bet if I looked up digraphs or diphthongs, you would find a lot more ideas. Also, frequency is important in how we teach these alternate vowel spellings. And again, the science of reading research does give us ways of thinking of them, and you've now seen this a couple of times today. So when I looked up the frequency of the sound of A, O, and E, this is what I came up with. And again, it answers the question, what are the possible ways to spell this? What is the most probable way to spell it? And what do I teach in what order? So the sound of A, when A is saying its letter name or its long sound, 790 words in the Hannah study had AE, 208 had AI, and 131 had AY. And we see the same kind of ratios or relative numbers for each of these spellings. And the one that's really, really important for me is the letter Y at the end, acting as a vowel. 1,801 words have the sound of E at the end of a two-syllable word spelled with a Y. Boy, I want to be sure to teach that to my students. So this is a way of looking at the possibilities. Another thing that we want to look at with these with these spelling patterns is, where does this letter sound, phoneme, grapheme occur in a word? Is it at the beginning, middle, or end? And that really helps you to talk with your students about each of these patterns. And isn't it nice? It's like so many patterns follow that principle. It's really cool. Okay, that is, those are all of the questions that people had asked this week for burning questions.
Awesome.
And I'm wondering if there's any more that you guys, that anybody might have. I can answer.
Well, I see 3 people on
Mhm.
that joined us, and I'm not sure if this went live, but
It will eventually.
it will
Right?
eventually. Too late for you to answer questions then.
Well, you know what we can do is if people watch it asynchronistically and they have questions, they can email me.
I'll put that
They
in.
can do it through, they can do it through
What's
your
that?
website. They can do it through,
Sure.
my whatever. So I'm happy to do that.
I think we're good. I wanted to show
Okay.
everyone this book.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so
That-
this is it's really old too. It's
I
like,
know. That's the book I have. That's the one I have.
it's not as old as some other books that I have. It's copyright 86. So,
Yeah.
but what I like is, so let's say you want to know how often EY is in a word, and then you can look at the words wherever EY is,
Mhm.
and then use these, like you say, for your lessons. That's so,
Yes.
especially in an Orton Gillingham lesson when you have to create it from scratch,
Mhm.
not using a program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to show you another book that I love that way. I have it here. I love this book. And you want to buy it from the publisher. Phonics and Spelling Through Phoneme Graphing Mapping. This is a treasure trove because it has it. Excuse me, even more so than words ABCs, and it has
Oh, yes. Look at
long lists. I have when I don't know how I found out about that book, but it is so helpful, and I use it all the time in planning. It's really a good resource.
we had Catherine Grace on our Facebook.
Really?
Yes, last December. She did an hour presentation for us.
Oh, I
Yeah.
would is it recorded? Could I listen to it?
It is recorded. I have to dig it out. I think it's on YouTube.
I would love to listen to that.
Yeah,
That's cool.
it's really cool. It's recorded, but it's private. But I will
Okay,
send
so
it to you.
thank you, sweetheart.
You're welcome.
So I think the last thing that we should say to everybody also is that this summer together, your group and I are sponsoring a training, and you and I put our heads together and said, how can we do this to be of best help to teachers in their scheduling? So what we did is we're going to start, and I could actually share this again and show people. We are going to start in the summer, and we're going to do a couple of weeks intensively in July 19th through August to July 28th. And then we're also going to do the 2nd, the 4th, and 22nd of August. But then we switch to a schedule in which we're doing Sundays for people. So we're going to do twice a month on Sundays for people. Which I hope is going to be easier than after school when you're a little bit of a wet noodle. And the other thing is that I wanted to say how thankful I am that the science of reading, how to teach what I should have learned in college. You are providing 10 scholarships, which is $100 off the training. And one of my dear friends and I, along with that, are providing the cost of the book for those people who receive the scholarships. I think we've given away one so far.
Oh, that's good.
Someone has gotten one of our scholarships.
Yay.
But I hope, that we get 9 more, and I hope other people, if they want to learn more about this, thinking about the reading and spelling of individual words with phonology, orthography, morphology, etymology, and also how do I correct my students' mistakes thoughtfully so I can create a dialogue which is teaching and modeling how they can self-correct themselves. And that's what I think we do in my classes.
So the class is 36 hours?
32.
It's 32 hours. I think if you want to get a deep dive into how language works, and how to be much more aware of how sounds are produced and how that affects students in their reading and their spelling, this is a great class. And what I like about it is that how often do you get an instructor that is live with you now, which is rare. So it's online, but it's online live. And then they get to build a relationship with you and the other students. And it's over time. And I really
Yes.
like that piece because it takes time to assimilate all this new information. It just doesn't happen overnight. And the fact that you'll be doing this during the school year is also beneficial because you can apply what you're learning right directly to your students. So I think it's a really good model, and that's why we planned it that way.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And you know, we're always evolving. The whole idea here is how can we create a community of authentic learning, deep learning, with, you know, really answering questions and being practical.
Yep.
That's what we're doing.
So I think this is a really good deal for those who are interested, and we'll talk more about that. So
Great.
in the next month or so.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sasha, for your work and your expertise. Always a pleasure. All right. Good night.
Be well. Bye-bye.
Well, that was good timing. I just got off my Zoom call.